Today we're visiting Galaxy S22 late 2024. Is it still worth it? It's been 2.5 years since the inception of one of the greatest, smallest phone that was ever built, which is Galaxy S22. And even if the hype died down, we can still move on from this phone, either for a good or bad reason. Obviously, there's a lot of heartbreaks about the battery life that even today, people still remember the bad experiences they had. But there are certainly good memories with the phone, especially the size, the performance, and obviously the camera. People still go back to these types of phones, even if Samsung recreated them. Today we're visiting what could be the best smallest phone out there in terms of overall performance. This is Galaxy S22 late 2024. After 2.5 years, the performance is still really strong. I have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 with 8 gigs of RAM on the fast UFS 3.1 storage. I have the 256 gigs variant. I bought the bigger storage capacity because Samsung is running some discounts on their website when this phone was first launched. I know this is a mixed experience for everyone because US, Canada, and Korea got the Snapdragon version while the rest of the world has Exynos 2200. I think this is something that people can't also move on because at that time, Samsung is providing different types of processors for their flagship phones, and sadly people doesn't like Exynos processor that Samsung now use on their mid-range A series. So just imagine 2 years ago, the Exynos processor was a flagship caliber and now it's being delivered on their more affordable series. On the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 version, it's still very strong and fast looking at those average to heavy games like Genshin, Impact, Mobile Legends, and PUBG. I think at this point, all heavy games support this processor. You will find ultra graphics, high settings, and refresh rate on those games just because this is well supported by developers and a lot of phones in the past uses this processor. For the entirety of its life, I'm just using this phone for vlogging since this could easily fit my pocket on travel and also playing Mobile Legends while on a trip just to surpass boredom, and this phone didn't disappoint. Also, the screen, which we will talk about later, has a faster refresh rate, so that adds up to the snappiness of this phone. And again, depending on the variant, you will get two types of GPU, the Eclipse and Adreno, which the latter is the faster and the better GPU in comparison. Our sentiments doesn't stop there because we cannot also move on with the great performance of the camera with the 50 megapixel main shooter with dual pixel autofocus and OIS. They're also given a usable 10 megapixel telephoto with 3 times optical zoom, still with OIS, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide with super steady video. If anyone uses the Exynos version, even with a different processor, this phone supports 8K at 24 FPS for both the Snapdragon and the Exynos, so that's really good. This phone is future-proof. We're also given a 10 megapixel selfie that can shoot up to 4K at 60 FPS. This channel still supports this phone, and we have a plethora of camera comparison videos of this phone this year. And even comparing this with the likes of S24 and S23 Fan Edition, this flagship camera phone can still compete with the best and the latest phones out there. Unlike the newer Samsung flagship that crushes the blacks, giving a more natural looking tone, Galaxy S22 gives a more vibrant colors and also brighter. So anyone who wants a point and shoot ready to post pictures on social media, then this phone is still a better option for you. Here we will give you a little bit of sample images and videos using Samsung Galaxy S22. This is the rear camera in 4K 30 FPS using the ultra wide. This is the main sensor. Look at the details. And we also have the 3 times optical zoom. The stabilization is pretty good for the 3 sensors. Better on the main sensor. And obviously, super steady video on the ultra wide sensor. Now this is the selfie video recording in 4K 60 FPS on Samsung Galaxy S22. I've been using this phone for almost 2 weeks now and it is a great phone. I like the size of the phone, I like the performance, the speed in gaming, and also the triple camera setup, the ultra wide, and telephoto. I think this is one of the best camera phones out there. Now let's check some low light video performance and take some pictures. Now, for anyone who has used this phone in the past and watched my battery test video 2 years ago, which is one of the most viewed videos in this channel, you guys know that this phone suffers from battery issues, and I even heard this is prevalent on the Exynos version because of its tiny 3700 mAh battery. Personally, I feel like even the iPhone SE series will beat this phone in terms of battery longevity, especially on standby time. We can't move on with those battery test videos wherein we turn off everything from the higher refresh rate, bright screen, put this phone on dark mode, just so we can save a little bit of battery juice, but even then, this phone will not give us a day of use. Normally, it will die down before the day ends. Now, late 2024 and after all the updates, that didn't fix the issue with this phone. I feel like for some of us that are still using this phone from the beginning, the battery might be even worse because 2 years is a long time and the battery already degraded. But still, with my conviction, I think if you're just a casual to average user and not doing any gaming, this could be a day of use. I know owners of this phone might have a backup power bank or charger that they bring with them just in case the battery dies. The size and design are one of the highlights of this phone aside from the performance and camera, just because this is the last phone that Samsung put their infamous camera bump. They are now using the minimalist looking triple camera setup that not everyone is a fan of. I think if you look on the Apple and Pixel competition, they're offering those bulky camera modules that looks better and subliminally feels more powerful than the minimalist looking design. Again, it's all about perception. We fell in love with the screen size. This will compete with the iPhone mini and Pixel 9 and other smaller phones out there. I think this phone can be used by someone with a smaller hands, and this will be an easy one-hand use for operation. It has IP68 water and dust resistance that other flagship phone offers, so this receives all the flagship features that one could get. Now, in terms of screen technology, this is a little bit outdated comparing with other Samsung phones. I feel like even the mid-range phones like Galaxy A35 or Galaxy A55 can compete with the screen technology of S22. It's no surprise because it's an almost 3-year-old flagship phone. But where the tricky part is if we compare this with the newest iPhone, which is iPhone 16, I mean, this phone can still compete with the newest flagship of Apple. To begin with, the size and dimension are almost the same, 6.1 inches, with around 90 to 91% screen to body ratio, and you have 1080p screen, same as iPhone 16. The newest flagship of Apple might have an edge over the brightness, 2000 versus 1300, but Galaxy S22 has 120Hz refresh rate that is adaptive and has always on display, while there's none for iPhone 16. So yeah, in a crowded place where you have someone using an iPhone 16 and you're using Galaxy S22, are you missing that much? Now, OS support is one of the biggest selling points on smartphones, and especially the flagship phones, because the competition is getting tougher and the OS support is getting longer. Galaxy S22 is one of those devices that offers at least 4 years of OS upgrade. I mean, it's not as long as the 7 years of Google, but at least at this point, this phone is still updating with the latest security patches, and moving forward, a few more OS upgrades. Out of the box, this is Android 12, so we'll be seeing 1 or 2 more OS upgrades for this phone. And speaking of OS support, this phone also supports DeX. This is the desktop version of an Android OS, and again, for traveling, if you have a portable monitor with keyboard, then you have the smallest possible smartphone that can go along with it. This phone is a really good bargain late 2024, and we can't move on with the price. You can probably buy this $300 to $400 top on used market. And I think with everything Galaxy S22 offers, from Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, the usable triple camera setup of ultra-wide, wide, and main, and obviously the size and the latest One UI 6.1 installed on this phone, majority of Galaxy S22 owners can still move on to the newer phones, and that's totally fine. This phone is still worth it even in late 2024.